Hello students, welcome to Third BTech first semester. Our subject name is Design and Analysis of Algorithms. Okay. Before getting to the lecture, first of all you try to understand the meaning of our subject. So our subject is made up of three phases. So first phase is design. Okay. Second one is analysis. In the third phase, you are going to be understand how you are going to be apply the designing techniques as well as analysis techniques on algorithms. Now coming to the designing, we are going to be have various techniques which are available in our syllabus to design the various techniques to solve the particular real-time problems, right? Now in the second phase, you are going to be have analysis part. So you are going to be analyze the algorithm in two ways. First one is in terms of time complexity, and the second one in terms of space complexity, right? Now we try to understand what is meant by time complexity as well as space complexity. So the time complexity is nothing but how much amount of time your algorithm is going to be takes to complete its execution. Now coming to the space complexity, how much amount of memory your algorithm is going to be occupied in your system. Okay. So based on these two parameters, you are going to be measure the performance of an algorithm. Okay. So you are going to be have a design phase. In the designing phase, you are going to be have various corresponding techniques to solve the particular problem. And later, after designing the particular algorithm based on the various techniques, you are going to be measure the performance of an algorithm in the analysis phase. Now, by using our subject, you are going to be apply designing techniques as well as analysis techniques on the algorithms. Okay. Now, coming to the algorithms. So about algorithms, you are already having experience on your previous semesters, right? So you learn about what is the definition of an algorithm, how to write the algorithm, right? So what is meant by an algorithm? Nothing but some set of instructions to solve a particular problem, right? But in this subject, you are going to be learn the techniques behind the algorithm in an advanced way. Okay, so in the previous semesters, you just learn how to write the algorithm as well as definition, that's it. But in this subject onwards, you are going to be learn how to measure the performance of an algorithm also. So that's why this subject is very, very important coming to the placement, campus placements, right? So in the campus placements, what happened is, so as of now, you learned up to second BTech second semester, right? So up to second semester of second BTech, the important subject is your data structures. But coming to the third BTech first semester onwards, the scenario is going to be changing. Okay, so now you need to have a knowledge on designing as well as analysis part also. Both things you required to get the placement in the best organizations. Now, so in this lecture, we are going to be discuss about the algorithm definition as well as specifications. So algorithm specifications are nothing but pseudocode conventions, the rules which are applicable or which need if you are developing algorithm by your own. Okay, this is the important task in our software field, right? So for every real-time problems, we are going to be develop our own example. So our own algorithm, right? So to develop your own algorithm, what are the rules which are necessary or what are the rules which are required? So in this lecture, we are going to be learn what are the pseudocode conventions which are required if you are developing your own algorithm for the real-time problem. Okay? Now, so before getting to the pseudocode conventions, you try to understand how this subject is very, very important in campus placements. Okay? So before having discussion on campus placements, so you try to observe the life cycle of an algorithm. Okay, so this algorithm life cycle is having how many phases? 4 phases, right? So designing is one phase, analysis is one phase, implementation is third phase, and the last one is fourth phase, which is testing. So as of now, you are having experience on implementation as well as testing. Why? Because you have completed C language, C++ language, Java language, and the current semester you are going to be learn Python. Okay, so through the programming languages only, you are going to be implement the code for the real-time problems. So that one you are already having experience. And coming to the testing phase, so in the software engineering subject itself, you learn various types of techniques which are applicable to test the quality of the software product. Right, so the last two phases are completed. Then in this subject, you are going to be learn the first two phases, which are designing as well as analyzing. That is nothing but our subject name, right? So the first two phases are available in the subject name itself. So that's why the first two phases are very, very important. Okay. So later you try to observe what are the various importance of this subject in campus placement. In our campus, mainly you are going to be get two types of companies. First one is product based company, and the second one is service based companies. So in the product based companies like Amazon, EPAM, Value Labs, okay, TCS Digital, Infosys Hack with Infi. So to get these jobs in product based industry, product based sector, this subject is very, very important. Why? Because you will get questions on this subject in technical round as well as technical interview also. So you are going to be get this subject questions on two rounds. First one is online test. The second one is your technical interview. So to crack the technical exam of online test as well as technical interview for product based companies, this subject is very, very important. You can observe these are the various companies these are the various product based companies which are visiting our campus regularly for every batch. Coming to the service based companies like Infosys, Cognizant, Capgemini. So this subject is also necessary. So to crack the technical interview of service sector also, this subject is very, very important. So you can observe the various service based companies which are visiting our campus regularly. Okay, so the final theme is, so to get the best placement with a package of minimum 3 lakhs, this subject is very, very important. Right? We will go inside the lecture. So what are the main concepts behind algorithms as well as various pseudocode conventions, how you are which are required to develop your own algorithms. Okay? In the unit 1, you are going to be have basic fundamental concepts like how to measure the time complexity, how to measure the space complexity, what are the amortized analysis, or what are the linear sorting techniques which are available. These are the fundamental concepts coming to the unit number 1. Okay, so to learn the advanced concepts, fundamental concepts are very, very required. Okay, why? Because algorithm is the fundamental thing, right? So if fundamental thing is ready, then ultimately various corresponding languages which are available like C, C++, Java as well as Python to develop that algorithm. Okay, that's why algorithm is the fundamental one. Okay, so the algorithm techniques or to design the algorithm you are going to which are starting from unit 2 onwards. Okay, the first technique you are going to be learned under unit 2, which is divide and conquer. So you try to understand the meaning of the divide and conquer. Okay, so dividing is one process and conquering is second process. What is meant by dividing? Dividing the big problem into small problems. So after dividing the big problem into small problems, I am going to be apply my divide and conquer technique to get the sub solutions. Okay, so after getting the sub-solutions, you are going to be combine all the sub-solutions to make a whole solution. So this technique will be useful to divide the whatever the big problem into whatever the big problem you are having into particular smallest sub-problems. Okay, so we'll discuss one example. For example, you are going to be have a Fibonacci of 3. Okay, so Fibonacci of 3 is divided into again Fibonacci of 2, and again this is divided into Fibonacci of 1, and again Fibonacci of 2 divided into Fibonacci of 1 as well as Fibonacci of 0. So how I have constructed this recursive tree? With the help of constraints. So what are the constraints of Fibonacci sequence? If the Fibonacci sequence of parameter is 0, then the answer is 0. Okay, so this example you are already aware about that, right? So the Fibonacci sequence of one parameter is 1. The Fibonacci sequence of n parameter will be reduced as Fibonacci of n minus 1 plus Fibonacci of n minus 2. So if you observe among these 3 constraints, you can say that the first 2 constraints are smallest subproblems. Why? Because you are getting the solutions directly, right? Now coming to the third constraint, again you are going to have a big problem, right? So whenever the parameter is big to you, you are going to be apply this divide and conquer technique to break down that big problem into smallest sub problems to get the sub solutions. Okay, so after getting the sub solutions, I am going to be apply this conquer technique to combine all the sub solutions to make a whole solutions. That is going to be our final solutions. Okay, so this is the main theme of this technique, right? Now, for every technique, advantage is there, also disadvantage is also there. So both things you need to remember. Okay, so now the disadvantage of this divide and conquer technique is it is not having a capability, decision capability, as well as it doesn't having a capability to memorize the previous results. This technique is suffering with these two problems. Okay, so these the problems or the disadvantages of unit number 2 will going to be overcome in unit number 3. For every technique is interlinked with each other. Okay, to understand the 5th unit concept, you need to clear first 4 units. So for every technique, relation is there. You need to understand that relation. Okay, now coming to the 3rd unit, you are going to have a greedy algorithms. Okay, so from greedy algorithms onwards, the algorithm is having a decision capability. Okay, how it is going to be works? Let's take an example. For example, I just want to search the shortest path from our college to RK Beach via Google Maps. Right? So from our campus to RK Beach, how many routes are available? Via Vadlamudi you can reach, via Gajuvaka you can reach, via Shilanagar you can reach, via Port Road you can reach, via NAD you can reach, via Simhachalam also you can reach. So likewise, how many routes are available? Multiple routes are available, but your Google Maps is producing one best path or multiple paths? Only one best route, right? How it is going to be possible? So that can be possible from greedy techniques onwards. So from greedy techniques onwards, your algorithms having a decision capability to choose among multiple routes, which route is the best one. Okay, the main disadvantage of the greedy technique is it is also having not possible of memorization capability. Okay, so the decision capabilities as well as memorization capabilities for your algorithms, which are starting from unit 4 onwards, which is nothing but dynamic programming. That's why this is very, very important. Dynamic programming is everywhere. Why? Because for every algorithm to solve a particular problem, you require decision capability as well as memorization capability, right? And coming to the unit number 5, you are going to have a backtracking as well as branch and bound. Okay, you are aware about backtracking, right? What is the best example for backtracking? Hamilton cycle. Okay, so what is the main theme of Hamilton cycle? You are verifying all the possibilities. If one of the possibilities is not generating the solution, immediately you are going back and choosing the next possibility. That is the main theme of backtracking. And now coming to the branch and bound, the disadvantage of backtracking will be overcoming in branch and bound technique. So you are not verifying all the possibilities. So based on the cost function only, you are going to be finding the solution. Okay, so to learn the artificial intelligence algorithms of A star as well as AO star, the branch and bound techniques are very, very important. This subject is very, very basic thing to learn artificial intelligence. That's why this is very, very important. And coming to the remaining concepts like randomization algorithm as well as multi-threaded algorithms. So coming to the randomization, you take an example of quicksort. So in quicksort, how you are selecting the pivot element? Either first element, or either the middle element, or either the last element. But coming to the randomized algorithms, you are selecting the pivot element randomly instead of fixing the particular place. Right? So that is the main theme behind randomization algorithms. Now coming to the multi-threading algorithms, so all these concepts are, other than multi-threading, are going to be single threading. Okay, now coming to the multi-threading, what is the main theme of multi-threading? So to provide the same service to the multiple clients at the same time. Okay, so to execute the same algorithm for the multiple clients in real time, ultimately you require multi-threading algorithms. Right? So that is the main theme of this one. The main importance of all these techniques is to crack the product-based company online exam as well as technical interview, you must require dynamic programming techniques as well as backtracking techniques. To learn these concepts, you must clear the remaining techniques. It is not possible to learn dynamic programming directly. First of all, you need to have knowledge on divide and conquer technique. followed by you need to have knowledge on greedy, then only it is possible to learn dynamic programming. So for every technique, some relation is there. That relation you need to catch. Then only it is possible to crack the best position of your software career. Okay. Now coming to the textbooks. So these are the various top textbooks we are going to be used. The first two textbooks are main textbooks, and the third one is your reference textbook. Okay, so this textbook soft copy is not available. So this textbook sample copy is available with me. So if you want, I can get it to you. Okay, so these are the three main textbooks we are using. The first textbook is Satraj Sahani textbook, and the second one is Corman textbook, and the third reference textbook which is given by Oxford University. So these are the main three textbooks we are using for this subject. Okay, try to remember. Now coming to the unit 1, this is our unit 1 syllabus. So in this out of unit 1, today we are going to learn about what is the definition of an algorithm followed by algorithm specifications. So after discussion on the basic concepts of definition as well as algorithm specifications, later in the remaining classes we will going to be clear all the remaining concepts. So the main outcome of this lecture is we are going to be learn definition of an algorithm, followed by some examples we will see, and followed by some rules which are required to develop your own algorithms. Okay, so the main outcome of this lecture is to analyze the performance of an algorithm and to understand the various pseudocode conventions which are required to develop your own algorithms. That is a main outcome of this lecture. Okay, now we will see about the definition of an algorithm. So you are aware about the definition of an algorithm, right? What is the definition of an algorithm? It contains some set of instructions to perform a particular task. That is a definition you have learned from your C language onwards. Okay, so you forgot about the definition. That is the textbook definition. Okay, so you need to understand the definition of every concept by comparing to solve the real-time problems. Okay, so the definition of an algorithm is going to be, it contains some instructions. That instructions must be finite. Okay, the instructions which are available in the algorithm must contains finite. Definitely, automatically you will get a question, right? What is that question? What happens if the algorithm contains infinite number of instructions? What happens if the algorithm is having infinite number of instructions? So ultimately, if the algorithm is having infinite number of instructions, it is not possible to stop that algorithm at particular point of time. So if the algorithm is going to the infinite loop, then ultimately it is not possible to measure the performance of an algorithm. So if the algorithm is having infinite number of instructions, it is not possible to find out the time complexity, as well as it is not possible to find out the space complexity. If your algorithm is executing with infinite number of times, that algorithm is not at all acceptable in real time. Okay, so every problem that can be designed by you must be published in the society to provide the service to the clients. Okay, so whatever the algorithm you are designing must have finite set of instructions. Then only it is possible to measure the performance of an algorithm in terms of time complexity as well as space complexity. Now the person who found the algorithm is Abu Ja'far Muhammad ibn Khwarizmi. So he is the person who found the algorithm in 18th century. Okay, so now let us discuss about some examples that you are performing in your daily life. Searching a document, that is one of the algorithms, searching algorithm. So searching a book in the internet, that is also another searching algorithm. Okay, so I am performing funds transfer operation. So I am sending a money from my account to my friend's account. So ultimately it is a funds transfer algorithm, right? And I am creating a QR code, or I am generating a OTP automatically, or I am sending a message from one device to another device. So if you are sending a message from one device to another device, that is nothing but sending algorithm, right? So if you are if the message is receiving at destination station, ultimately that can be done by received algorithm. Okay, these are the various various examples in your daily life you are performing. Okay, now let us observe the graphical representation of an algorithm. Okay, now coming to the graphical representation of an algorithm, for every algorithm you must give an input. Based on the input only algorithm will works. By taking the input, the algorithm will produce an output. Right? So how you are providing the instructions? through the computer or through the user, you are continuously sending the instructions. Based on the instructions, your algorithm will going to be takes input as a parameter. So based on that input, it produces some outputs. Okay, that is a data flow between input operation as well as output operation of your algorithm, right? Now coming to the properties. Okay, so if you are developing your own algorithm, what are the properties your algorithm must satisfy? Right? The first property which is input. So how many inputs your algorithm can have? An algorithm can have 0 or more number of inputs, like your functions. In how many ways I can write the function? With no parameterized, as well as I can write functions with parameterized. Okay, so what is the meaning of no parameterized function? This function will perform an operation without accepting any input. What is the main theme of parameterized function? This function will perform an operation by accepting some inputs as a parameter. So likewise, you are already having experience on programming languages. You try to compare your existing knowledge with the this algorithm concept, so that you will learn or you will remember each and every rules which are required to develop your own algorithms. Okay, so the first property is input. It must have 0 or more inputs. Now coming to the second property, output. How every algorithm that can be designed by you must produce minimum one output. That is the meaning of that one. If your algorithm is not producing any output, definitely it contains some errors. So if algorithm having any errors, ultimately it is not possible to get the output, right? So whatever the algorithm designed by you must produce minimum one output. Based on that output only, you can measure the performance of an algorithm. Okay. Now the third property is definiteness. So every algorithm, what every algorithm contains? Instructions. Those instructions must be clear as well as unambiguous. What is meant by uncleared instructions? Here I have given every instructions must be clear. What happens if the instruction which is available in the algorithm having uncleared instructions? Ultimately, that will produce an error to you. The best examples are dividing by 0 or taking a square root for the negative values. So these are the uncleared instructions. These are the examples. And what about if the instruction is having ambiguity? Ultimately, it will produce two outputs. For every instruction, you must generate one output exactly. But if your instruction is having ambiguity, ultimately it is producing two different outputs for the two different clients. In real time, it is not going to be acceptable. Okay, so if you are designing your own algorithm, these properties you must take care. And the fourth one is finiteness. So this finiteness is nothing but the definition of an algorithm, right? Why? Because all the instruction must be finite. Then only it is possible to stop the algorithm at particular point of time. So if the algorithm is stopping at particular point of time, then only it is possible to measure the performance of an algorithm. For example, I am taking a for loop which is starting from I equal to 1 to 10. So based on the first value of for loop as well as second value of the for loop, you can say that the for loop is executing 10 number of times, and at 11th time the execution of that for loop is going to be stops. Right? So this is the way you are going to be measure the performance of an algorithm. And the last property is going to be effectiveness. So every algorithm that can be designed by you must be effective, right? Then only it is possible to trace the algorithm manually. Okay. So for example, I am taking a factorial example with a parameter value 3. Okay. So if you are giving factorial function with a parameter 3, ultimately is a big problem to you. It will be reduced as factorial of 2, and this is again reduced as factorial of 1, and this is again reduced as factorial of 0. Okay, why? Because what is the constraint to perform the factorial function? So the factorial of n will be reduced as factorial of n minus 1. So likewise, these are the recursive calls. Okay, so and these from bottom to up you are going to have a results. So the result of factorial of 0 will be given to factorial of 1. The result of factorial 1 will be given to factorial of 2. The result of factorial 2 will be given to factorial of 3. This is the way you are going to be have a recursive calls to perform a particular task for the factorial function. Okay, so this is my tracing with a parameter value 3. So whatever the algorithm you are performing must be traced manually. So every algorithm that can be designed by you must satisfy all these 5 properties. Okay? So the properties are input, output, definiteness, finiteness, effectiveness. Input must be, so input must be 0 or more, output must be at least 1. Okay, so the instructions must be finite, and the instructions must be clear as well as unambiguous, as well as all the instructions must be traced manually. That is the main theme behind the summary of definition of an algorithm, as well as the particular properties your algorithm must satisfy, right? So now later we will see about the various rules with developing your own algorithms. So that is nothing but pseudocode conventions. First of all, we will see what are the rules which are required. Okay, the first rule is comments. So comments must be denoted by 2 backward slashes. And the second one is blocks. Like your programming languages, the blocks will be denoted by flower brackets, left and right flower brackets, right? And the third one is identifier. Like your programming language, every identifier must starts with a letter, nothing but alphabet. Okay, so underscore, dollar symbol are not at all acceptable. So every identifier must starts with a letter. Okay, so the operators are not at all acceptable. Okay, and coming to the fourth one, which is assignment operation. In programming language, how you are performing the assignment operation with the help of assignment operator, right? So what is the syntax? Variable equal to value. This is a syntax to perform assignment operation in programming language, right? Now in algorithm, the syntax is going to be different. So in a prefix of your assignment operator, you are going to have a colon operator. So the colon followed by assignment operator, which defines the assignment operation in algorithms. Then what happens if I give a equal to 10 in algorithms? So the single assignment operator in algorithms will going to be called as logical comparison. Okay, so don't forget to give colon prefix of your assignment operator if you are performing assignment operation, right? Just this is the syntax as well as example. Now the fifth one is Boolean values. So in our programming concepts, the Boolean value having how many values? Only 2, true or as well as false. So the true will denoted by 1 and false will be denoted by 0. Okay, and the next one is multi-dimensional arrays. So how to represent the 2-dimensional array in programming language with 2 subscripts, right? Array name followed by first dimension followed by second dimension. So the first dimension denotes rows, the second dimension denotes columns, right? But in algorithm point of view, the way of representing the multi-dimensional arrays is going to be changes. Like all the values will be available in only one subscript. Okay, so 1, 2 I am giving. Okay, so the one defines rows and column defines by second parameter. If I want to take the third dimensional array, then ultimately you are going to be represented as a of 2, 3, 4. So 2 represented as first dimension, 3 represented as second dimension, and the 4 represented as third dimension. You no need to take multiple subscripts like your programming language in algorithm point of view. So you try to compare the existing knowledge in your mind with the new concepts. Then only you can remember everything, right? Now coming to the loopings. So you are aware about while loops, right? So to execute some set of statements continuously, you are going for a looping statements, right? So the looping, you are going to have a syntax which is, so to execute multiple statements, initially you need to verify the condition. If the condition is satisfied, then only the logic having a capability to execute all these statements which are starting from statement 1 to statement number n, right? Now coming to the next looping statements. So the next looping is your for loop. So in programming language, how you are taking a for loop? For of variable, semicolon, condition, semicolon, followed by incrementation as well as decrementation. This syntax is going to be changing in algorithm point of view. You no need to verify or you no need to worry about incrementation as well as decrementation operation algorithm point of view. So if the for loop is starting from, this is my assignment operation. Why? Because I am using colon operator here, right? I equal to 1 to 10, then it will be called as an increment operation. How it can be possible is, for first iteration, the value is 1. For the second iteration, the value is going to be 2. And for the third iteration, the value is going to be 3 until 10. This is going to be your incrementation operation. Now, what about decrement operation? The for loop is starting from I equal to 10 to 1 onwards. It is a completely reverse approach, right? In the first iteration, the value is 10. In the second iteration, the value is going to be 9. In the third iteration, the value is going to be 8. Likewise, the I value will be decremented from 10 to 1. So, this is the way you are going to be performing incrementation as well as decrement operation algorithm point of view, right? Now, we try to observe the syntax here. The for loop syntax is for, as I said previously in the previous example, variable colon equal to value 1 followed by value 2. So, value 1 is the initial value for your for loop, and value 2 defines the last value for your I variable. So, likewise, you are going to be have a n number of statements to execute this logic continuously. Now next one, you are going to be have a repeat. So, this is like your do while in your programming language. What is the main theme of do while? First executing all the statements. After executing all the statements, you are verifying the condition, right? So, likewise, in algorithm point of view, you are going to be have a repeat. So, in the repeat, initially you are executing all the statements. After executing the statements, then only you are verifying the condition. Okay, so after executing all the statements, you are verifying whether the condition is satisfying or not. So, in the while loop, condition will comes first. In the repeating loop, condition will comes last. That is the difference between while loop as well as repeat loop. Okay. Now, coming to the next one, which is going to be your conditions, if condition. So, in how many ways you can write if condition? If followed by condition with logic. And the second way you can write if condition is with else block. If condition followed by logic, followed by you are going to have a logic with else block. So, here one statement will be associated with one condition. But if you observe here, two statements which are available, which are associated to the same common logic. That is the difference between if condition as well as if else. Okay. So, you try to observe the syntax coming to the if condition as well as if else condition in programming language. Okay. So, if condition is true, then only you are executing single statement. So, if condition in coming to the if else, if condition is true, you are executing this statement. If this condition is failed, then you are executing statement number 2. That is the main difference between if as well as if else. Okay. Now, coming to the next one is going to be the case. This will be similar to your switch case. So, how the switch case will be executed? So, in the switch case, you are going to have a particular number of cases. If the case is satisfying, then only you are executing particular statements. So, if all the cases have been failed, ultimately at last you are going to have a default case to execute the default logic. So, likewise, in algorithms also you are going to have a case, you are going to have a various conditions. If condition 1 is true, you are executing statement number 1. If condition 1 fails, if condition 1 is failing, then the control is entering to execute condition number 2. So, if condition number 2 is satisfying, then you are executing statement number 2. So, likewise, the control will verifying each and every condition to execute particular number of statements. So, what happens if you get a doubt like what happens if all conditions have been failed? Then ultimately the control will move to the else block. This is nothing but your default case to execute the default statement. That is why here all the statements which are starting from 1 to n, in the default case the number is n plus 1, because this n plus 1 is not a part of your logic. Okay, it is nothing but a default logic. You need to execute if all the conditions have been failed, right? Now, coming to the input as well as output operation. Okay. So, how we are performing input and output operation in C with the help of printf, scanf, and in C++, C in, C out. In Java, scanner class as well as system.out.println. In Python, print. So, likewise, in algorithm point of view, you are going to be perform the input and reading output operation with the help of read as well as write methods. With the help of these two methods only, you are going to be perform input operation as well as output operations dynamically. Now, coming to the last one. So, in the last one, you are going to have a syntax to write the algorithm heading. For function also you are going to be have a heading, right? Like return type, function name, list of parameters. Likewise, algorithm is also having a heading, which is every algorithm must starts with a keyword algorithm, followed by algorithm name, followed by list of parameters. So every algorithm that can be designed by you must having with a algorithm name, so with a prefix of algorithm keyword. So this is the way you are going to be have a algorithm heading. Now we will see one example. Okay, so how to apply the rules which we have learned as of now to solve this particular task. So this task is you need to find out a maximum element, okay, as well as you need to return that element. Okay, so how the logic is going to be? For example, I am going to be taking an array. My array contains elements like this. So this array contains how many elements? 4 elements. So your task is to find the maximum element among these 4 elements, as well as you need to return the maximum element. So how the logic is going to be? So initially I am assigning my first element as my result or my max. Now I am going to be compare the first element with the second element. So by comparing the first element and second element, I can able to get which among these 2 elements, which one is the maximum one. Okay, so by comparing 5 and 3, sorry, which one is the maximum? 5. My result is 5 only. Now I am going to be compare result with the next element. What is the next element? 17. So what is the maximum among 5 and 17? 17. Now I am going to be update my result value. Previously my result value is 5. Now it will be updated as 17. Now I am going to be again comparing the 17 with the last element with 2. So among 17 and 2, which one is the maximum? 17 only. So this is the way and this is the logic behind to find out the maximum element which are available in the array, right? So now you try to observe how the algorithm is going to be to solve this particular task. Okay, so to solve this problem, first of all, you need to identify how many parameters you required. Ultimately, you require 2 parameters, right? What are those? First parameter is an array, and the second parameter is as a size of the array, right? So 2 parameters which are required to solve this problem. Okay, so you can write array as a of, or you can write simply name itself. Okay, this defines array notation, right? So what happens if I write a simply without this subscript symbol? So you can denote this meaning of this parameter a in your comments. Both can be acceptable. Okay, so here I am not writing the parameter of 1 as array. Why? Because I am writing a is as an array of size n in my comment section. Both can be acceptable. Okay, so this notation can be acceptable and this notation also can be acceptable. If you are using this notation, definitely you need to write the meaning of this notation in comments itself. Okay, now we try to observe the logic. So initially I am assigning my first element as a result. So you try to remember in programming point of fixes which are starting from 0 to n minus 1. But in algorithm point of view, every loop will going to be execute how many number of times? N number of times, particular n number of times, right? So likewise, so you try to take each and every iteration value from 1 to n, so that you will get n value. So what happens if you take 0 to n minus 1? So if you take loop as 0 to n minus 1, so total this loop is executing n minus 1 number of times, plus 0 time also you need to calculate. So minus 1 plus 1 will get cancelled, the value is going to be n. So you try to, 99% we are using the iteration which are starting from 1 to n, not 0 to n minus 1. You try to habituate these notations. Okay. So after assigning the first value as a result, now I am going to be compare this result with all the remaining elements which are available in my array, which are starting from second element to the last element, right? This is going to be the logic. So I have taken first element as a result, right? That's why my for loop is starting from 2 onwards. So my for loop is starting from second element to the last element. So you need to compare this result parameter with all the elements which are available from second element to nth element which are available in your array. Yes. So to compare your first element of an array with all the remaining n minus 1 elements, you require a for loop which is starting from I equal to 2 to n. Okay. So like this. So here I am taking my for loop which is starting from I equal to 2, and you are going to be compare my first element with all the remaining n minus elements which are available in my array. Okay. So to compare to compare all the elements as well as to get the maximum element, you required one if condition. Okay, so the if condition is going to be verify all the n minus elements which are available in your array with the result parameter. Okay, so by comparing the a of I element with the result, so if the result is going to be less than a of I, then it is going to be okay. So what happens if a of I is greater than the result? Then ultimately you need to update the value of the result to get the maximum value for each and every iteration of your for loop. Okay, so likewise with the help of the for loop, you are going to be trace all the elements which are available in the array. So after tracing all the elements, you can have a capability to get the maximum element with the help of result variable. So after tracing all the elements in your array, you are going to be return the corresponding maximum value which is available in the n number of elements of your array. Okay, that is the main theme of this example number 1. Okay, so in the next example, we are going to have a selection sort. What is the main theme of sorting algorithm? To convert the unsorted elements into sorted by. For example, I am going to have an array like this: 5, 1, 2, 3. So this array contains how many number of elements? 4 number of elements. So is this array is a sorted or unsorted manner? Definitely it is a unsorted manner. So how to convert this unsorted array into sorted manner? Ultimately required an algorithm. So the algorithm which is required to compare initially the first element with the second element. Okay, so likewise you are going to be comparing each and every element with the remaining n minus 1 or the remaining elements which are of your array, so to get the sorted order. Okay, so by comparing 5 and 1, so the 5 and 1 are going to be sorted order or unsorted manner, right? Definitely you need to convert this 5 and 1 as 1 with 5. Now you are going to be comparing 5 with 2. So after comparing 5 with 2, you are going to be have a sorting, or you need to sort the values from 2 with 5. Now I am comparing 5 with 3. So after comparing 5 with 3, so 5 is greater than 3, then ultimately I need to swap 5 and 3. This will be converted as 3 and 5. So likewise the result sort array will be converted as sorted manner to unsorted manner to sorted manner from 1 followed by 2 followed by 3 followed by 3 followed by 5, like this. So this is the way you are going to be apply the selection sort logic to convert the unsorted array into sorted manner. Okay, just observe the algorithm. So here also you require 2 parameters as input. A is an array as well as n defines the size of the array. So followed by you are going to be have a for loop to trace all the n elements, right, which are starting from 1 to n. So 1 defines the first element of your array, n defines the last element of your array. Okay, so now I am going to be have a, first of all I am going to be assigning, if this is my an array, so I am assigning my first element as a j, okay, and my second element which is going to be k. So why? Because I is assigned as a j, the first element, and the second element which is I plus 1, right, the second element which will be assigned as k. Now I am going to be compare j and k. If j is smaller than k, then I don't require any swapping technique. If j is greater than k, then ultimately you require a swapping, like this. So if j is going to be greater than k, ultimately you require swapping. So to swap, I am going to be take a temporary variable. So likewise I am going to be swap whenever my condition is going to be satisfies. Okay, so at the end of this algorithm iteration, my array of unsorted values will be converted as sorted manner. Okay, so as of now we have seen the definition of an algorithm, followed by properties of an algorithm, followed by we have seen what are the rules which are required to develop your own algorithm, followed by we have seen some examples also. Now you take these 3 examples as an exercise. The first one is linear search. I am giving an assignment to you. So what is meant by linear search? You need to search the n size array with a key. Okay, if key is available in the array, then you are returning true, otherwise you are returning false. That is the main logic behind linear search. You are verifying the element in a brute force approach. You are verifying all the elements linearly. That's why it is called as a linear search. Okay, and the second assignment I am going to be giving to you as you need to write the pseudocode for simple interest as well as compound interest. So for these to solve this second exercise, what are the parameters you required? You need to accept the principal amount followed by number of years followed by rate of interest. So based on these three parameters, you can have a capability to find the simple interest as well as compound interest. And the third one I am going to be giving to you as funds transfer operation from one account to another account within the same bank only I am giving. Okay, so what is the parameter you need to read to perform the third exercise as an input dynamically? First of all, you need to read the amount the person A want to transfer to B's account. That value you need to retrieve, as well as one if condition also required to verify whether the funds are available in the A's account. So if funds are available, then you can perform arithmetic addition operation on B's account and arithmetic subtraction operation on A's account. So likewise, the logic is going to be works. Okay. Now we try to take one quiz. Okay. Here I am giving one quiz to you to measure your knowledge on this lecture. Okay. So here I have giving 6 questions to you. So what is the first question you are going to be have? How to analyze the performance of an algorithm? So the first option they given as time complexity, and the second option is space complexity, and the third option is time and space complexity, and fourth one is none of this. So what is the correct option for you? The correct option is C. So you are going to be measure the time complexity of an performance of an algorithm in terms of time and space complexity, right? Now coming to the second condition, an algorithm should have infinite number of instructions or finite number of instructions or both finite and infinite. So every algorithm should have finite number of instructions. That is what your definition is telling. Now third one, every algorithm should have how many properties? How many properties every algorithm should satisfy? Input, output, definiteness, finiteness, effectiveness. Nothing but 5 properties it must have. And what about the fourth one? So what is you need to choose the correct option to perform a assignment operation. So this is the way of syntax in your programming language, right? But coming to the algorithm point of view, all these operations are going to be wrong. The correct option is B. Why? Because here colon is there, assignment operator is also there. Then only it is possible to assign the 10 value to a variable, right? Now coming to the fifth one, in which looping statement the statements are going to be executing first, followed by you are going for condition verification. So okay, the correct option is while is not satisfying. Why? Because in while condition is comes first, followed by statements execution, right? And coming to the for, this is also entry level condition verification. And coming to the if is a condition, not a loop, right? Now the correct option is repeat. In repeat only, you are executing all the statements first, followed by you are going for condition verification, right? Now coming to the sixth question. So in which case, if all condition has been failed, then what is the block you are executing? Ultimately, you are executing else block. Okay, these are the various questions to test your knowledge on this lecture. Okay, so that's the end of this lecture. Thank you.